Once upon a time, in a small, secluded village nestled deep within a dense forest, there lived a mysterious woman named Alara. She was known to the villagers as a recluse, rarely seen outside her quaint, ivy-covered cottage. Alara possessed an enigmatic aura that intrigued and frightened the villagers. Her most notable possession was a smooth, obsidian-black stone that she always carried with her. The stone was said to have been passed down through generations, holding a dark and powerful secret. Alara's family had been the guardians of this stone for centuries, tasked with keeping its malevolent force in check. Many believe that the stone granted immense power to its holder, but at a terrible cost. It was rumored that Alara's ancestors had succumbed to madness and despair due to the stone's influence. Despite these warnings, Alara was determined to harness the stone's power for her own purposes. She was driven by a thirst for vengeance against those who had wronged her family in the past. Years ago, a band of ruthless marauders had attacked the village, killing Alara's parents and leaving her an orphan. The villagers had turned their backs on her, fearing the wrath of the marauders. Alara had grown up in solitude, nurturing a deep-seated hatred for both the marauders and the villagers. The black stone became her only companion, whispering promises of retribution and power. One moonless night, Alara decided it was time to unleash the stone's power. She ventured into the forest, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. The forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, but Alara paid them no mind. She reached a clearing where a circle of ancient stones stood, a place her ancestors had used for rituals. Alara stood in the center of the circle, holding the black stone aloft. She began to chant in a language long forgotten, invoking the spirit trapped within the stone. As she chanted, the stone began to glow with an eerie, dark light. Shadows danced around her, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, taking shape before her. It was a specter of immense power, a manifestation of the stone's malevolent force. The specter spoke in a voice that resonated with ancient malice. "You seek vengeance, mortal? The price is your soul." Alara hesitated for a moment, but her desire for revenge overcame her fear. "I accept," she declared, her voice unwavering. The specter smiled, a chilling sight that sent shivers down Alara's spine. "Very well. Your wish is granted." With those words, the specter vanished, and the stone's glow intensified. Alara felt a surge of power course through her veins, filling her with a dark, exhilarating energy. She knew that the time for revenge had come. She returned to the village, her eyes burning with a newfound intensity. The villagers sensed that something had changed in Alara. They whispered among themselves, casting wary glances in her direction. Alara ignored them, her mind focused on her plan. She needed to find the marauders who had destroyed her family and bring them to justice. Using the stone's power, she was able to track down the marauders to their hideout in a nearby mountain range. The journey was treacherous, but Alara was undeterred. As she approached the hideout, she could hear the marauders' raucous laughter and the clinking of their weapons. Her heart burned with rage, and she knew she was ready to strike. Alara waited until nightfall, when the marauders were at their most vulnerable. She crept into their camp, her movements silent and precise. One by one, she dispatched the marauders with ruthless efficiency. The stone's power guided her hand, making her strikes swift and deadly. The marauders, caught off guard, were unable to mount a defense. Panic spread among them as they realized they were under attack. Alara showed no mercy, her vengeance consuming her completely. The last marauder fell at her feet, his eyes wide with terror. With the marauders vanquished, Alara felt a sense of grim satisfaction. But she knew her work was not done. The stone's power had a hold on her, and it demanded more. She turned her gaze back to the village, her thoughts filled with the betrayal she had endured. Alara returned to the village under the cover of darkness. She moved like a shadow, her presence unnoticed by the sleeping villagers. She began her grim work, using the stone's power to exact her revenge. The villagers who had turned their backs on her felt the cold bite of her wrath. One by one, they fell victim to Alara's deadly precision. The village, once a place of fear and isolation for her, became her hunting ground. As dawn broke, the village was a scene of devastation. Alara stood amidst the carnage, the black stone pulsing with a sinister energy. Her thirst for vengeance sated, Alara felt a strange emptiness. The power of the stone had consumed her, leaving her a hollow shell. She knew that she could never return to the life she once had. The stone had bound her to its dark will, and she was now its servant. With a heavy heart, Alara left the village, disappearing into the forest once more. The black stone remained clutched in her hand, a constant reminder of the path she had chosen. Alara wandered through the forest, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The power of the stone had granted her revenge, but it had also taken everything she held dear. Days turned into weeks as Alara roamed aimlessly, the stone's whispers growing louder and more insistent. It demanded more blood, more souls to feed its insatiable hunger. Alara resisted, struggling to retain her humanity. She sought refuge in the depths of the forest, hoping to find solace away from the stone's influence. But the stone was relentless. It invaded her dreams, showing her visions of violence and chaos. It promised her power beyond her wildest dreams, if only she would give in. Alara fought against the stone's pull, but she knew it was a losing battle. The power it offered was too tempting, too intoxicating to resist forever. One night, as she sat by a crackling fire, the stone's voice grew louder. "Embrace your destiny, Alara. Become the force of destruction you were meant to be." Tears streamed down Alara's face as she grappled with the choice before her. She had already lost so much, and the thought of losing herself completely was terrifying. But the stone's power was irresistible. With a heavy heart, Alara made her decision. She would embrace the darkness and become the harbinger of death the stone wanted her to be. As she accepted the stone's power, a transformation began. Her eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and her body radiated an aura of darkness. Alara felt an overwhelming surge of energy, her senses heightened to an unnatural degree. She was no longer the woman she once was. She had become something far more sinister. She ventured out of the forest, her mind set on a new purpose. The stone guided her, leading her to places of strife and conflict. Alara became a force of terror, her presence heralding death and destruction. Villages fell before her, their inhabitants unable to withstand her wrath. The stone reveled in the chaos, its power growing with each soul it consumed. Alara felt a twisted satisfaction, her humanity slipping away with every life she took. Rumors of the dark sorceress with the black stone spread far and wide. Fearful whispers spoke of her unholy power and her insatiable thirst for death. Alara's name became synonymous with terror. Kings and queens sent their best warriors to stop her, but none could stand against her dark might. One day, a young warrior named Eric heard of Alara's reign of terror. He was determined to stop her and free the land from her malevolent influence. Eric was brave and skilled, but he knew he needed more than just his sword to defeat Alara. He sought out an ancient sage known for his wisdom and knowledge of the arcane. The sage listened to Eric's plea and nodded solemnly. Alara's power comes from the black stone she carries. To defeat her, you must first destroy the stone. Eric asked how he could accomplish such a feat, and the sage handed him a small, intricately carved amulet. This amulet has the power to neutralize the stone's energy. Use it wisely. Eric thanked the sage and set off on his quest. He tracked Alara to a ruined castle where she had made her lair. As he approached, Eric could feel the oppressive energy emanating from the castle. He steeled himself, knowing that this battle would be his greatest challenge. Inside the castle, Alara sat on a throne of bones, the black stone glowing in her hand. She sensed Eric's presence and smiled, a cruel and knowing smile. "You have come to die, warrior," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "The stone will consume you as it has consumed so many others." Eric drew his sword, the amulet clutched tightly in his other hand. "I will not let you continue your reign of terror, Alara. Your time has come to an end." The battle was fierce and intense. Alara's dark powers clashed with Eric's skill and determination. Despite her formidable strength, Eric's resolve never wavered. He fought with everything he had. His eyes locked onto the stone that was the source of Alera's power. In a desperate move, Eric hurled the amulet at the stone. The amulet glowed brightly, its energy clashing with the stone's malevolence. Alera screamed in agony as the stone's power was neutralized. The stone shattered, its dark energy dissipating into the air. Without the stone, Alera's power faded. She fell to her knees, her body racked with pain and exhaustion. Eric approached her cautiously, his sword still at the ready. "It's over, Alera. The stone's hold on you is broken." Alera looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weak. "I am free." With those words, Alera collapsed, her life force ebbing away. Eric knelt beside her, a sense of pity and sadness washing over him. Alera's body dissolved into shadows, leaving nothing behind but the shattered remains of the black stone. Eric knew that her soul had finally found peace. He stood up, the amulet still glowing faintly in his hand. The land was free from Alera's terror, but the memory of her dark reign would linger for years to come. Eric returned to the sage, who nodded in approval. "You have done well, young warrior. The land is grateful for your bravery." Eric bowed his head, the weight of his journey heavy on his shoulders. He had defeated the dark sorceress, but the cost had been great. The sage placed a hand on Eric's shoulder. "Remember, true strength comes not from power, but from the courage to do what is right." With those words, Eric left the sage's dwelling, his heart filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The tale of Alera and her black stone became a legend, a cautionary story of the dangers of unchecked power and the strength of the human spirit. And so, the land slowly healed, the darkness that once plagued it banished by the light of hope and courage.